So this story is the literal reason why I always close my blinds at night. And in honor of Halloween coming up, I decided to share this story because I told my friend this like a couple of days ago and she was totally freaked out, and I think this is a great story. So when I was in 3rd grade, I had a phone. And it was like one of those cheapo phones. I needed it because my parents wanted me to have a phone so I could call them. Anyways, I had a phone when I was like in 3rd or 4th grade. And one night I was on my phone, I was texting my friends, and they had sent me, like, one of them had sent me this like huge chain story text message, and it's one of those text messages where it's like, oh, if you have to send it to 10 people or 7 people or else you're gonna die tonight. But basically the chain text message was a story about this girl. I will not say her name because I have not said her name ever since this instance, because I still like her name gives me chills. But anyway, it was about this girl who, she didn't have any friends, she was kind of a loner, and 2 friends had befriended her or something, and they took her into the woods like to hang out or something, I don't freaking know. But then they pushed her down a well and she died. And then in the story, it talked about this guy named David or something like that, who had read the text message of the story, and he didn't send it to 7 or 10 people, and he like saw her in his room and he died. And I was like, this is stupid, like I'm not gonna do that. And then the next night, so the way that my house is set up, there's my room on the complete opposite side of the house upstairs, and then there's like this like movie like family where all of my family gets together and we watch movies and stuff. That's downstairs on the opposite side of the house. And so the next night after I had gotten that text message, me and my family were watching a movie, and my mom was like, Yana, go upstairs and take a shower because it's getting late and you need to get ready for bed. And like the good girl I am, I made my little way upstairs into my bedroom. So the bedroom of my childhood house faced the street where all the street lamps are. So even at night when I have the blinds open, the light shines into my room so I can kind of see what I'm doing, and I can see outside into the street. So in my head, I was just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna grab my clothes and then not even gonna turn on the lights and just head my way to the bathroom. So I'm grabbing my clothes here in my window. You guys are my window. And so I grab my clothes and I look over, and outside I just see this woman with really dark black hair and her eyes were glowing, looking into my room like this, like she was like looking for something. And then for a good 10 seconds she was looking around the room, and then she finally sees me and makes eye contact with me. And I was just frozen in fear for like a good 20 seconds while she just stared into my soul. And number one, I've thought about this so logically. I was like, oh, maybe it's some random girl who just like made her way onto my roof. But no random girl's eyes glow in the middle of the night, okay? Ugh.
This scary story from a follower comes with pictures and you are not ready. So my follower's name is Avery, and at the time of this story happening, they were just a kid. And for the past 7 years that they had lived in this house, everything about it just set them on edge. You would hear creaking floors in the night, or you would feel like there was someone following you up the stairs when you knew you were walking up there alone. But every time that they tried to talk to someone about it, their family would really just brush it off. They would insist, no, there is something in this house, and more specifically, they claimed there was a demon in the cellar. Now, they included a picture of the demon, but they described it as a tall, humanoid type entity with a rooster head on its shoulders and claw-like hands, and they would never see anything but its silhouette. And this goes on for years and years and years. Avery is just seeing the weirdest stuff in this home, but when this story takes place, things took a truly terrifying turn. On this day, Avery is just sitting in their bedroom, which kind of shares the attic space with their friend, and they're just hanging out. Nothing weird is going on whatsoever. They're just hanging out, they're talking, and basically how they're sitting is Avery is sitting here and their friend is sitting here. And behind their friend is like one of the corners of this room. Suddenly, out of nowhere, their friend just jumps up at the same time that Avery starts staring at this corner. And neither of them say anything. They both just stare at the corner together. They both had the same feeling, the same petrified, like something is in that corner watching us feeling. As they were staring at the corner, a black mass began to form. It was literally like a shadowy mist in the corner that appeared out of nowhere. And they were so scared they couldn't even move. They were just standing there totally frozen, staring at this thing. And it slowly just disappeared. Avery says it felt really familiar despite the fact that it didn't look like this demon she had seen before. She just knew that was what this thing was in the corner, now in the attic, whereas she had always seen it in the cellar. Avery says that despite the entity looking different here, they knew it was the same demon they had seen in the cellar before. It had just taken on a different shape. They knew it. It felt so familiar in that moment. And it was really gratifying because previously when Avery had always told people, like, I swear to you, I see this thing throughout the house, nobody ever believed them. And now their best friend has just seen it too. This experience scared them so much. They never really talked about it after that day, but Avery says that their best friend saw the exact same thing, this black mass of a mist just appearing in the corner. Avery goes on to say that over time, they kind of put up spiritual boundaries and told whatever this thing was to leave them alone. And slowly but surely it did. However, they say that from time to time, they can still feel the presence lurking. They end off the email by saying, if anyone has seen anything like this and knows anything about the symbolism of a rooster's head, let me know. I'm sure Avery will be reading the comments here. Thank you so much to Avery for being a member of my YouTube channel. What do you guys think about this? Stay spooky, friends.
Let's talk about why I tell people to not play with Ouija boards. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and a lot of the time on my page, I talk about other people's experiences. However, I have a lot of my own. And if you've been here for a long time, then you've probably heard the story, or if you listen to any of the podcasts that I'm on, you've probably heard this story. But I think it's important to revisit it because I am a very strong advocate on not messing with that thing specifically. And it's because of my experience. And before I get comments flooding into my everything, I know I should have listened to my mom, okay? I know that now. But let's get into it. When I was a freshman in high school, I and my friend decided to make a Ouija board and play it in my room. You may be asking yourself, why did you make it? Because I've come to find out that when you make things with intention, it is worse. And if y'all are unaware, Toys R Us, when it was a thing, you could buy a Ouija board at Toys R Us. You can buy Ouija boards at a lot of toy stores or novelty stores, which is very scary in retrospect, but I digress. So, this person I was around had already experienced a lot of things with ghosts. I had only seen one, and I was almost certain that it was just a family member. So we shut off the lights. I had this little table sitting over there, and we put the Ouija board, I put the planchette on, we lit a candle, and we put a small piece of silver on the corner. And we're asking dumb questions like, who are you? How old are you? You know, whatever. And the planchette is moving, but it feels so strong that I'm convinced it's her pushing it. And it's answering normally, like I don't remember the answers to that, but I do remember the answer to this one. I got fed up with the planchette moving so quickly that I asked the board something that my friend wouldn't know. And I proceeded to ask it, if you're so real, what is my grandfather's middle name? So when my grandfather passed, I am almost certain that we did not put his middle name on his obituary because nobody knew that. And that was like something within my family that we did not share, etc. There were 5 letters in his middle name. The planchette stopped moving when I asked the question. We sat there for probably 15 seconds, and I was like, this is fake. I knew you were pushing it. And as I'm saying that, it starts moving. It goes to the first letter, and it's right. It goes to the second letter, and it is right. It goes to the third letter, and as it's heading for the third, I take my hands off. I know, big no-no. And I am absolutely horrified. It finished spelling his middle name, and afterwards, I put my hands back on, we said goodbye, I blew the candle out, and we just went on our merry way because that was too much. Now, the backyard at my parents' house is set up where we have a lot of shrubbery and tall trees. And after our session with the Ouija board, we decided to do something that we thought would be fun, which is taking photos in my backyard. And it's important to note that the room that I had at my parents' house in the basement, the window in the room faced out towards the backyard. And as we were taking photos against this shrubbery, I had my back faced away from the window. My mom is the only one home, and as I'm taking pictures of my friends, we hear, we both turn around, we don't see any movement. My parents' room was right above where I lived. So I'm convinced it's my mom messing with me. I run inside, I go upstairs, I fly through her door, and she is asleep. I wake her up, and she does the mom thing where she's like, you know, and I'm like, why did you scare us? She had no idea what I was talking about. And for a long time, I was like, no, I know it was you because you told us not to do that and blah, 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 blah. Ratted myself out. And she immediately was like, I did not mess with you. And I will get into how I know it wasn't her. The following month after this happened was the scariest month I can possibly think that I had activity in my house. So a week after we played with this board, my sister burst into my room at 6 a.m. and she's like, I have something to talk to you about and I don't know what it was. Okay, weird, because my sister usually sleeps until noon and she's up at 6 a.m. willingly, and she says she has something to tell me because she doesn't know what it was. I immediately have a weird feeling. She begins to tell me how she essentially astral projected out of her body and was looking at herself sleep through her window, which is on a slope at my parents' house. And she saw something leaning over her body. When she woke up, my dog was gristled up, teeth showing, snarling, growling, and barking at the corner in the middle of the night. And I compartmentalized that, right? I didn't tell her about the board. I didn't tell her what we did. I didn't tell her anything. I just said, you know, this is probably just a nightmare. I think it was just whatever, because I didn't want to scare her. The week after that, so we're 2 weeks post Ouija board session, and my parents are out of town in Colorado, and my sister is at my cousin's house staying the night. So I was home alone, and there's a little note to me as a person. I don't like the dark. And this particular night, I felt so comfortable walking in the dark. It was really weird. The only light source, I was shutting all the lights off for the night. The only light source was coming from my room. So there's the big doorway of just light. Next to my room is this built-in bar area. I'm walking through the dark. I'm pretty much in the doorway of light at this point, and I hear, whoa. Whoa. That was really weird. I hear, hey, right next to my ear. Ran into my room, barricaded the door, and I did not come out until my sister came home the next day. And don't get me wrong, I've heard weird stuff at my house before. I have never heard anything or anyone talk to me, and I was the only one home. And the last thing that happened to me was not necessarily a situation. I always felt like there was someone in my room. I always felt like there was someone either standing outside my window, like my sister dreamt about her doing, or I always felt like there was someone in my closet. And yes, that's a very common thing, but it was so prevalent that I felt like I was going to walk into my closet and there was going to be a human being there. And at the time, I started working at a church and I started praying, and slowly but surely it went away, and I have not experienced anything in my house that was relative to that since. I'm also a firm believer that if you are trying to mess with these things and try to provoke these things, they will catch you off guard. I am a firm believer of that. So I've had experiences since then that were related to paranormal activity, but nothing related to that, and I know because I could feel it. So that is why I don't mess with those anymore. I don't think I will ever touch another one ever. And in my story about the museum, that is what made me extremely nauseous, and I'm convinced it was because there was something attached to the board. But just do anything else. There are so many different things that you can do to try and see activity. Don't do that. I'm also a firm believer that those just open up whatever door to wherever and whoever wants to answer first. Like the talk to me hand, that is what I think of. But anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
It's time for another scary story. This story takes place at my grandma's house, specifically in Maryvale area in Phoenix, Arizona. So this house has a lot of scary stories, but let me tell you the few scary stories that are very similar to each other that happened throughout the years. So there was this one specific time one of my grandma's sisters was living with her at the time, and she would get home around 2 a.m. in the morning from work. When she got home from work, she stated that she heard knocking coming from the glass sliding doors to the backyard. As she got closer, she said that she saw that it was a little boy knocking on the door. He was looking into the glass sliding doors and knocking at the same time. She stated that she turned on the lights to get a better view of the kid, but she said when she turned on the lights, he wasn't there anymore. That she went to the backyard, and when she went back there was nobody. It was empty, nobody was out there, so she just left back inside. That is so creepy, right? Wait, it gets creepier. This one time, my uncle, which is my dad's brother, was living with my grandma at the time. He stated that he was in his room with the door open, laying in his bed, so he had a view of the hallway from his bed since his door was open, you know. He stated that he saw a little boy peek into his room and just run back to the hallway towards the living room. He assumed it was me and my siblings with my parents for a surprise visit, like we always did. We always went for surprise visits to go see them. He was wrong. He got up after he saw the boy running towards the living room, and he said that when he checked the whole house, there was nobody there. He said that he checked the doors, they were all locked. He checked the windows, they were all shut, closed, and locked as well. He right away got creeped out. He ended up waiting in the front yard for my grandma to get home because he was that scared. Wait, there's more. There was this one specific time my great-grandparents were visiting from Mexico, and they always stayed with my grandma. My grandma said that late at night, my great-grandpa woke up yelling with pain. She obviously ran to him and said, "What is going on? What is wrong?" My great-grandpa told her that there was a little boy sitting on his leg and that it was hurting to get him off. My grandpa insisted on her getting that boy that was not even on his leg off of him. Guys, my grandma said she was so scared because there was nobody on his leg. She was so creeped out. There was this other time my grandma had her brother and his wife visiting her, and they had a young boy that was around 4 years old at the time. She said that that young boy interrupted their grown-up conversations and insisted on her to follow him to the hallway because he said that there was a little boy who wanted to talk to her. That boy was asking for Sylvia, which was my grandma. So my grandma said that the little 4-year-old pulled her by her hand and pulled her to the hallway and said, "He wants to talk to you. He's right there." My grandma said there was nobody there, obviously, and she was so creeped out because this isn't the first time she has heard of this little boy in her house. She told him, "There's nobody there." Like, "No, there's nobody there, mijo." Like, she said that he started crying, saying, "Yes, he is. He's right there. He wants to talk to you. Talk to him." One creepy thing about her house that always happens also is it's almost as if a little kid is messing with you. For instance, my uncle, my dad, and a lot of other family members that have stayed at my grandma's, because a lot of people actually have lived with her because she always invited people kindly, like, "You guys can live with me," when they needed somewhere to stay. Have stated that in the middle of the night they get the blankets pulled off of them, almost as if a kid's playing with them. Things end up going missing, and you literally find them in places you would have never thought you would find them. In other words, places you for sure know you did not put the stuff that went missing at. So those are the stories about my grandma's house. Let me know if this was a creepy story or not.
Tell me
unbelievable, but is entirely true.
Okay, let me tell you about my experience. I was 17 years old and I was coming down the school bus. As I'm walking home, I hear someone say, "Help, help, I can't find my son." Whenever I turn around, it's this old man, which everybody in the street knew him and his son lived together. I get closer to him and I ask, "What's going on? How can I help you?" He tells me my phone line isn't working and I really need a phone to call my son. I haven't seen him in a week. I can't rest. I'm very worried. When I remember this, he looked very stressed. He wasn't wearing any shoes. He was barefoot and he was looking at me just right in my eyes, and he was so worried, and I could tell that he felt pain. Like, he just looked like he was in pain. So I felt bad for him and I gave him my phone so he could call his son. So he dials out and it goes straight to voicemail. He dials it again, straight to voicemail. So he then tells me, "Do you have another minute? Can you please wait? It's really important for me and I need to go get the yellow book and see if I can find one of his friends on the yellow book." So I said, "Okay, go ahead, go look for the phone number." He comes back with this yellow book in his hands and he dials out. It rings, the other person on the other line answers, and then he tells him, "Hey, it's Rick, I'm looking for Randy, I haven't seen him in a week." The other person on the other line said, "Stop fucking with me," and hung up the phone. So he gives me back the phone and he tells me, "Please, please, if you see my son or somebody calls you back, tell them that I'm very worried and I cannot rest." So I told him, "Okay, I'll keep an eye out and I'll ask my brothers if they've seen him. So I go back home, and as I'm walking home, I start getting this very bad feeling in my stomach. I get home, I ask one of my brothers if he has seen Randy, and he tells me, "No, I haven't seen him, but did you hear that his dad passed away?" I thought he was messing with me, so I pull out my phone and I tell him, "Look, he even dialed out." And whenever I go to the to the recent calls, there wasn't any calls. And I thought maybe he deleted them. But I had this feeling in my stomach and I just had to know. So I walk back. I go back to that house and I start knocking on the door. And I keep knocking, and as I'm knocking, I start noticing that there's a pile of mail outside of their house that looks very dirty. And I knocked even harder. And the next door neighbor comes out and he tells me, "Hey, no one's home. Randy hasn't been home ever since his dad passed away." And whenever he told me that the dad had passed away, the front door just flew right wide open. When I tell you, every time I drive by that house, I get such a bad feeling, I don't even turn to look there anymore.
Spooky story time with proof. A follower named Monica sent me the story, and we're gonna call it My Dad's Friend. Monica is 25 years old now, but she says her whole childhood, her and her family would go camping all the time. She says that they went so often that she feels like she knows the area very well. The men in her family had started a tradition that every time that they went at nighttime, they would all go and walk along the river. She thinks that maybe they like the thrill of being in complete darkness. One particular night, it was her dad, her uncles, and their friends, and they decided to go for a walk. And they decided to start snapping pictures of things and stuff to see if they would catch anything spooky. And they started taking pictures of each other. And then they got what they wanted. One of her dad's friends took a picture of another friend who was standing on a rock. They went about their night, and then later they started looking at all the pictures. And the picture of the friend looked off, different. His face and his hands were completely disfigured. His hands looked huge and thick, and they appeared to have like long nails. And his face looked red, and it looked like he had horns. She did send me the picture, and I will post it here. She said that after seeing that picture, they immediately called it a night, and that was the last time that this specific friend ever went camping with them. Later, they found out that he actually worshipped. She knows that people have different opinions about this, whether it's good, whether it's bad, and she has no judgment, but what she knows is that it can be a little negative. And for some reason, she thinks that this might have something to do with this whole picture thing. She said that she was a teenager when this happened, and she's always been very skeptical about this picture. But everyone involved has always said the same exact story. The story has not changed. And she says that this picture was taken about 10 years ago. So she doesn't even think that they were able to edit. And everyone, again, involved has said that this picture was not edited. Like, this is legit. What do you guys think? Thank you so much to Monica for sending me this spooky story. If you guys have any other stories that you'd like for me to read, please send them via DM or email, and I'd love to read them, and I will see you guys in the next spooky story. Bye!
Jinns are one of the most terrifying beings to be haunted by. I am back with another spooky story, and like I say in every single video, you might not want to watch this one at night. Jinns are no joke. Just something as little as saying their names or being afraid of them can attract them to you, so don't watch this at night. We'll call the person who submitted this story Fatima. Fatima says, I know it's been some time together to share my story about what some may call the shadow man. The reason why it took her some time was because this started appearing after, trigger warning, she was essayed by her own dad. Says she's been trying to figure out a way to tell her story without revealing too much since none of her siblings nor stepmom knows about this. So Fatima was around 15 when this happened. They lived in an apartment building somewhere in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So this place was like some sort of former compound with like clusters of 6. That has 4 17-story buildings in each cluster. There were stories from the past that nurses from abroad would be taken there, raped, and unalive. Fatima's third eye was awakened around 11 or 12 when her biological mother decided to leave her dad because she couldn't take the abuse anymore. Fatima says she can sense a lot of Jinn family living there. Fatima's dad was a Muslim, and each time after a prayer, he would be preaching about Islamic topics. So often she can sense Jinns sitting behind her. There were times that their energy was so strong that she would get teary eyes from discomfort and fear. It got to a point where she grew to get used to them. Like in the master bedroom, she would often see a little white silhouette of a kid running towards her. Or on days where she is by herself, she would hear sounds that she knows are not her siblings. She would tell them, the Jinn, to leave her alone, which these white silhouettes did. Said there were even times when their antique television would just turn on and off by itself with the volume on max of white noise. There is this one particular black shadow figure that Fatima always sees by the glass door that is between where they sleep. So imagine one of those old doors that has a window. Her siblings would always joke by putting their faces on there. It's a foggy type glass, so you may not be able to see the face, but you can tell when someone is standing behind it. There would be times where they would leave the light on outside for the youngest because she was afraid of the dark. So she would see through the glass this dark shadow, often at night, but sometimes even in the daytime, standing by those doors. They were kicked out of that apartment due to a financial crisis. When a friend took them in, it wasn't over because this being followed them. Fatima says the assaults used to happen in the apartment for months before their stepmom stepped in and came back for them. Muslims are allowed to marry more than one wife at a time. Yeah, while they were in this neighborhood, one night, she woke up while everyone was asleep. Near her feet, she saw a male figure sitting and watching her. He had some sort of hooded top on covering his head. Fatima says that she wasn't scared at the time. Fatima wasn't scared at the time because she was numb from the trauma that she had nobody to share with. Her escape was listening to Hybrid Theory of LP to keep her sane and alive. This male figure kept appearing at night, and due to loneliness, Fatima told him that she needed a companion, just telepathically. Then on, he kept following her, even when she goes outside. At one point, she called him her suitor. One day, her and her stepmom had an argument which she can't really remember what it was about, but she cried that night. Yes, her stepmom was the sweetest person ever. She was just having a breakdown due to the oppressed emotions. The next day, after the incident of her crying at night, her dad told her that he woke up in the middle of the night, almost like a startle, and found a dark figure on top of stepmom and was about to hit her in the tummy. Instinctively, her dad grabbed this being, threw him towards the boxes that were in the room. Her dad was a hoarder and he loved collecting oil perfume. And the next morning, they found bags of perfume on the floor, broken. Fatima was in the middle of drawing this suitor, and her dad recognized the drawing right away and said that was who he saw that night. He was aware of her gifts since Fatima had opened up to her dad when she was like 8 or 9 about her premonitions. Her grandfather on her dad's side was a shaman in their villa in Liberia, and her mom's father was a healer in the Philippines. So she got to inherit the combo of both sides. When she learned that this suitor tried to hurt her stepmom, She got upset. She said she could still remember it as day. It was around noontime when she felt his presence while she was sitting in the living room. She told him that she appreciates him being there for her. However, trying to hurt her family was unacceptable. She asked him to leave, and the moment she said this, when she asked him to leave, the lights in that living room were flickering like that in a horror movie. Many years later, when they came to the Philippines for studies, her mental health was declining due to her father's abuse. Ever since she had the guts to say no to his SA, started the mental and emotional abuse as the narcissist he was. He was the scapegoat and black sheep in his eyes. This being came to visit her twice. The first sketch she made of him she left in Saudi. She was able to sketch a new one in 2016. She said the second and last time that she felt the presence of this suitor, she somehow took out an uncompleted drawing of his and saw a pair of eyes behind him. She said, "I will look for my drawings and I will send to you in the morning." She wasn't able to send me the pictures, but I'll keep y'all updated. Thank you guys so much for watching this spooky story. If you have a spooky story that you want me to tell, please feel free to submit it to me either right here on TikTok or on Instagram. I am looking for new stories to tell, so please go ahead and submit those. And I am selling merch, so be free to get your very own abducted human merch. The link is in my bio. Make sure you follow me on Instagram just so that I know that it's real, duh. Like I say in every single video, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl.
Time about some of the crazy things I had happen to me while I used to babysit for a family with a lot of demonic activity in their house. This was the first time anyone validated me and saw something with me, so I knew I wasn't crazy. It's just a quick little story, but it's one that really stuck with me. So this particular night, usual amount of insane activity is going on in the house, and I say insane, but it had become so normal, just hearing laughing and seeing shadows out of the corner of her eyes, and you know, Luna, the oldest one, talking to the ghosts as she normally does, or demons. Usual night babysitting of terror. Nothing extraordinarily crazy had happened this night besides the laughing in the shadows, like I said, which that was every single time I walked in the house. So I remember I put both the kids to bed and I was gonna go to like a party afterwards because I was in high school. So I remember parents were out for date night or something, and I was on the phone with one of my friends, FaceTiming somebody. And we were talking and she's like, "Oh, like, hold on," and she gets all quiet. And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "We'll go check on the kids." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "You said you put the kids to bed." I was like, "Yeah, they're in bed, they're sleeping." And she was like, "No, there's literally, I just saw like two things walk behind you. I just saw something walk behind you like twice." And I remember just instantly like my blood running so cold. The pure like terror I experienced in that like moment. I was like, "No, dude, like the kids are, I'm telling you, they're sleeping." And she was like, "No, Riley, like something walks behind you." I don't know if it was two people or just one of the kids, but I saw a shadow, like someone, of a person, an apparition, walk behind the frame of like FaceTime twice behind you. So I'm sitting on the couch, and behind the couch is like, you know, a little living room and TV. Behind the couch is the kitchen. It's like a big open room. So I'm thinking like, okay, one of them, honestly at first when she said that, I didn't think it was to do with the activity. I was just in denial. But I was thinking that like Luna, the oldest child, had maybe gone up to get a snack or water or something, and she'd been having issues like staying asleep. So I wondered like, okay, she maybe didn't want me to know she was awake and was just trying to get something. And so I remember I looked really slowly behind me. I was absolutely terrified. Nothing. The kids aren't in the kitchen. So I'm still on FaceTime with my friend, and she's freaking out. She's literally like teary-eyed. She's like, "That was the craziest thing I've ever seen." "What do you mean the kids aren't awake?" Like, "No, I saw someone behind you, like walking, pacing behind you." And I was like, "Dude, well, they're kids. Like, how was this person tall? Like, fucking talk to me." And she's like, I don't know how to describe it. "I just saw someone walk by you twice." So I keep her on FaceTime, and I go into the kids' room to check on them. Passed out, and I'm like showing her on, you know, FaceTime, and she's like covering her mouth. She's like, "Oh my god, this is fucking insane. Like, dude, I'm not crazy." I was like, "No, I know you're not. Do you believe me?" Because I would tell my stories to my friends all the time. They'd think I was absolutely insane. And so anyways, I sit back on the couch and I was like, "Please don't hang up. Like, no, I'm really scared." The parents at that point too were gonna be home soon, like 20-30 minutes after I checked on the kids. So I was like, "Just stay on FaceTime with me, like just keep showing me your outfits or options," because she was bringing me clothes. I was meeting her and stuff. So like, we'll talk about something else. I'm really freaked out. And so we get back on topic, you know, clothes, plans for the night. I remember she was putting in the camera, like it was like tube top or something, crop top. She's like, oh, this would look really good on you. It has, and then she stops talking, and I see her eyes drift from like me to like the side of me, and I'm just like, please don't say what I think you're gonna say. I remember I was like, no, don't tell me. And she was like, don't turn around. I'm gonna screenshot this. Then she starts freaking out 10 times worse. She literally said, she's like, I'm trying to screenshot right now. My phone will not take a screenshot. And then she screamed, and I was like, what? And she's like, it's gone. She said that she saw a face, like, but just the features you could see of the face, dark eyes and like a mouth behind me. She said it looked like it was crouching down. Ugh, gross. Looking at me over the couch, like it was on its knees on the floor behind me or something, just like standing behind, its head was behind my head. I remember me and her talked about this so much, and she was just like, I didn't believe in anything paranormal, and now I like cannot believe I did not believe in stuff like that. So I really, after that, was feeling like extra scared, always thinking something was looking at me behind my shoulder, and I never wanted to like answer FaceTimes or take pictures because I was too afraid of what I might see going forward.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
I have one. When I was 16, 17 years old, my bedroom was the attic of my parents' house. One night, I proceed to have one of the most real feeling dreams I've ever had. In the dream, I'm sleeping in my bed. I wake up in the dream to an older woman standing in the corner of my bedroom. I do not know this woman, never seen this woman. She actually looked quite ghost-like, a little translucent. You could see through her a bit. Like she looked like a ghost. She proceeds to ask me, I have a son. He needs someone to play with. Would you mind playing with him? Not sure why I chose to say yes, but I did. And I was like, yeah, I'll totally play with your son. That seems totally normal. Like, we're in a dream, so, like, fine, I'll play with your son. As soon as I say, yeah, I'll play with your son, he appears, like, if I'm laying in my bed, like, she's on this side, he appears on this side of the room, like, right where the stairs are, the top of the steps. And he starts to walk over to my bed, comes to my bed, and he's like, let's play arm wrestling. So I'm like, yeah, no problem. Let's play arm wrestling. So I put my hand up like this. He puts his hand in my hand, and we are arm wrestling. At first, it's like a good give and go. We're like, oh, yeah. And then, like, he pins my hand completely down. I feel his hand, hold on. I feel his hand around my hand, ice cold. He pins my hand down and is staring at me. And I'm like, okay, like, let's play again. And he goes, I don't think you want to play this game with me. Just like that, like, dead stare. I don't think you want to play this game with me. So I'm like, what does that mean? Let's play, like, okay, let's play the game. So he goes, no problem. Digs his nails into my hand like that and starts pinning my hand to the bed, yelling, I win, 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 I win. I rip my hand away from his. I feel the scratch marks on my, like, right here. And then he takes a step back with this, like, grin on his face. And he becomes this, like, black cloud of smoke. And I know that sounds unreal, but just stay with me. So he's this big cloud of smoke. This is all still in the dream. I get up, I'm screaming, I jump out of my bed. Here's where it gets crazy. I jump out of my bed in the dream, and I wake up in real life, and I am fully standing on my feet. So as I'm standing on my feet, I'm like, what the fuck just happened? I'm down the stairs, out the room, right? And so my mom and my sister are downstairs in the kitchen cooking breakfast. My mom is a very spiritual person, so I have no problem just being like, yo, this is what just happened. And it's like, disregard the dream if you want, but I was fully standing when I woke up. Insane. And so typically, not saying typically like this happens all the time to me, but like, my mom we regularly would have priests come over, bless the house, things like that. So like, that's not weird. So like, my mom throwing holy water around the house is not like an odd thing in my household. So like, I'm expecting her to be like, okay, let me go get the holy water. I'll spray your room down. Like, not a big deal. She goes, the holy water is right there. You're going to go get it and go upstairs and throw it around your room with some salt. I'm like, why are you not doing it? She's like, I think you should do it. And I'm like, okay, this is insane. So I take the salt, I take the holy water, I go upstairs. My sister's like, I'll come with you, but I'm staying at the bottom of the stairs. Everybody's acting scared. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy. This is something. So I have the holy water, I have the salt, I go upstairs. I have the holy water in like a little cup, and I have the salt. I go upstairs, and so I'm like throwing the holy water around, just a little flap around. And I have the salt, and I throw it onto my bed, and it sizzles. Bitch. I was going. I never ran down a flight of stairs faster in my life. I don't even think I touched one step. I jumped from the top 11 steps down, bow, hit it. I was downstairs the next flight, bow, hit it. I didn't stop for shit. I said, the only way I'm going back up there is if y'all bring a priest to hose this house down with a fire truck of holy water. I'm not playing at all with y'all. And so my mama got the priest to come, and he blessed the whole house, top to bottom. He didn't miss no floor, no nook, no cranny. And I never had an experience like that again. So I don't know where that little boy is at, but I hope his soul is at rest, because he...
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, I'm gonna try really hard to summarize this because I could literally talk about this forever. I'm gonna tell you guys my dad's story because I have my own that I think is really, really freaky, but his is like another level. When my dad was a teenager, he was a little more on the rebellious side, and my grandma was very, very religious, as she always has been. And so when his friend came over with Ouija board and said, "Do you want to do this?" he was like, "Okay, sure." I think also at the time people were more acute to believe that Ouija boards weren't real because we didn't have the internet and we weren't able to hear people's stories about this. So it's my dad, my dad's friend, and my dad's brother, so my uncle. They all decided to do it together because they're all friends. They sit down, they open the board, and they have the spirit come through. It's a girl, she says she's a pilgrim, I don't remember the name, and they talk to her, and it's fine, they have a good experience. So because they had a good experience and it was fun, they did it again and again. They did it about 2 or 3 times. Everything was fine every single time until the last time they ever used it. The last time they ever used a Ouija board, they sat down and they were talking to this one specific spirit. Again, she's the only one that they ever talked to. While they're talking to her, she's in the middle of spelling something out, the board stops, and the pattern, the way it starts to move, starts to change. So pretty immediately they can tell that it's not her anymore, there's something else there, and they're kind of confused, so they ask, is someone else here? The board moves to yes, and they're like, okay, who are you? And it starts to spell out a name. I'm not going to say the name because I believe names have power and it genuinely scares me, but I will finger spell it. Okay, it's pretty easy to figure out who this is, you'll see. And the way that the board is moving now is different. It's ominous. It like has a negative energy to it. So they ask the person or whoever, they ask the spirit, what do you want? Like, why are you here? Why did you get rid of the other spirit? The board starts to spell out over and over again, I want to kill you. I want to kill you. Over and over. So this is enough for them. They close out the board, they don't talk about it, they never use it again, they don't touch it. But obviously this experience stuck with my dad. It's scary. So when he became an adult and Google had just kind of become a thing, he decides to Google it and see if there's any information about this spirit. Nothing comes up. There's not much on Google at this point, so he's like, oh, okay, whatever. A couple years later, once it's a little bit more established, he Googles again, and there's a little bit more information. Other people are talking about this and the experiences that they've had, and he's like, oh, that's really weird. And then when the internet becomes fully established, YouTube's a thing, Reddit's a thing, it's there. He Googles it a 3rd time. And at this point, there's a full-length feature film about it, YouTube videos, Reddit threads, like thousands of people talking about how they've had an experience with this one specific spirit. That's why I said it's really easy to figure out who this is if you actually want to. I wouldn't really recommend, I don't know. So of course this terrifies him. He's like, oh my god, like that's crazy. And I 100% believe my dad because I grew up hearing the story before the internet was a really established thing, so I know he's not making it up. So yeah, I definitely have a handful of my own to tell, but that is my dad's.
Alright, I got a scary story for you. This is a true story that my coworker told me one day when we were sitting around on break having a conversation about whether or not we believed in ghosts, and it genuinely freaked me out. So he said back when he was a freshman in college, there was this dorm building on his campus that had been completely shut down. The building had been closed shortly after a tragedy had taken place there, where a young woman who was a freshman at the school had unalived herself in her dorm room. So one night, my coworker and one of his college buddies are just sort of roaming around campus looking for something to do when they suddenly find themselves by this building. Now, they had heard the story about what had happened in there, and they knew that the school had closed the building off to any students, but being young, adventurous college kids, they kind of looked at each other and were like, ah, screw it, let's see if we can get in there and explore the place. To their surprise, they actually managed to get into the building pretty easily. And once they were in there, they saw that most of the furniture had been cleared out, lights were off, and even many of the doors inside were dead-bolted. So it was clear that no one had been living in that building for quite some time. So they continue exploring the place, just walking up and down the halls and checking out the different rooms, or at least the ones they could get into. Eventually, they found themselves on this one floor of the building that had pretty much nothing but dorm rooms. So they're walking down this one hallway, and as they go, they're stopping at each of the dorm rooms and trying the doors to see if any of them are unlocked or if they can get in, but sure enough, they're all dead-bolted. But eventually, they find this one door that doesn't have a lock on it, so they're like, oh, finally, maybe we can actually get into this room. So they try to open it, but for whatever reason, they can only seem to get the door open by like a couple inches. In his own words, he said it was as if someone was on the other side of the door trying to hold it shut. So they're standing there struggling with this door, trying to open it, but it won't budge, and they're looking at each other like, what the hell's on the other side of this door that's blocking it? Eventually, they just get fed up and they say, you know what, let's just move on and try to explore some other rooms. But as they start to walk away, they hear the door behind them slowly creak open. Now, his buddy who's with him is just immediately spooked and just takes off running and just kind of leaves him behind. But my coworker has the opposite response, and he actually freezes there for a moment before he slowly turns around, and when he does, he sees that, sure enough, the door is open and that there's actually a young woman standing in the doorway. And unlike his friend, he wasn't scared, he actually felt bad, so he immediately starts apologizing to her. He's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Like, my friend and I were just exploring this place. We thought it was closed down. We didn't think anybody was living in these rooms. Like, we're really sorry for bothering you. I hope we didn't scare you at all. And the girl was actually really cool about it. She didn't seem upset at all. She told him that it was okay and that she understood, and even introduced herself and began to strike up a conversation with him. So they start making small talk, just talking about, that they're both freshmen and where they're from and, what their majors are and just things like that. And eventually she tells him that she had actually transferred from another school but is now living on this campus and that this is her dorm room. And it was on that note that my coworker goes, yeah, speaking of that, why are you living in this particular dorm room? Because this whole building is supposed to be shut down and all the other doors on this floor are deadbolted shut. Like, you're the only one who lives on this entire floor. And he said she was just very sort of nonchalant about it and kind of just looked at him and went, oh, really? Well, I don't know. And basically just brushed it off like she didn't know what he was talking about. So he thought that was kind of weird, but he figured whatever, he didn't want to press her on it too much, so he continued just making small talk with her. But as he continued making small talk with her, he said eventually his eyes kind of started to drift past her and look behind her into the room. And it was then that he noticed that the room was completely empty. There was no furniture, no bed, no desk, no personal belongings. It was just a completely bare, empty room. So once he notices this, he's just immediately really confused and weirded out. So he tells her, you know what, I should probably get going. I gotta go find my friend, but it was nice meeting you. So they say goodbye, and he leaves and catches up with his friend and tells him all about that sort of both normal but weird exchange that he just had with this girl. So days go by, and he's still just trying to wrap his head around this weird interaction, and he eventually gets to the point to where he's like, you know what, I'm gonna look up that case where the girl had unalived herself in that dorm building. So he looks it up and he finds the name of the girl who had passed away in there. And sure enough, it was the same name as the girl that he had talked to that night. He said him and his friend have never gone back into that building and that it's still abandoned till this very day. If you like this video, stay tuned because I'm going to be posting more creepy stories on here, and even if you have one yourself, feel free to DM me and maybe I'll read it. Thanks.
Okay, so right now I'm on New Orleans TikTok where they're talking about all the like haunted and like vampire stuff that's like happening to them. And I don't have like a lot of like stories like this, but I do have one of when I was an EMT and me and my 50-year-old Christian woman partner, who she does not believe in this stuff at all. We were taking this patient that was on a 5150 that was being extended. And so we took her to like a longer stay home, which I've never seen like a home like this in LA before. But it was basically like this wood house in Atwater Village. And the moment you pull up, it just looks like this wooden Victorian situation, like something you would see in a movie. Like if you've ever seen that movie Monster House as a kid, like that's what it looked like. And the vibes were just like not right as soon as you got out. But I was like, you know, whatever. We get out and this poor woman, she was just not doing well. She was, I don't think I'm allowed to tell you what was wrong with her. Anyways, we get out and she was like, please don't leave me here. Like I can see things and like she's like sobbing to me. She's like, please don't leave me here. But like, I have to, you know, like as much as I don't want to leave you here because it is fucking haunted, you can tell. What am I supposed to do? I'd be kidnapping you. Anyways, we get inside. We can barely get her freaking gurney in there. And we're taking her up to the room. The whole time she's just sobbing, this poor girl. And my partner just kind of attributed that to that obviously she didn't want to be in another mental health institution. But so we took her there. They did her vitals. They took her to the room and whatever. We were all done. We get in this elevator. And I'm like nervous laughing just thinking about it. We like condense our little gurney and we close the elevator and it says 3, 2, 1 and those are the only buttons. So we click 1 and we stop at 1, the doors don't open and then it just keeps going down and I'm like, what the fuck? And the doors open, pitch black. It's pitch black. This is obviously the basement, right? It's pitch black and you can't really hear anything except like this growling, and not like that, but like growling of like a machine or something. And it's just like really eerie and the vibes, the energy was just sucked out. Like it's like negative energy. I'm pushing the button and she's looking at me like, Hannah, please push the button. And I was like, I'm trying, like, and I'm pushing 1, I'm pushing 2, I'm pushing everything just so we could go up. And I'm not even shitting you when I say this. I say this with my whole heart. This is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. We heard footsteps, slow footsteps, like a heeled man's shoe walking from the back of the room to the front of the room, but it's pitch black. You can't see anything. Slow footsteps. And she looks at me and I was like, and we're both pushing buttons. We're pushing the emergency button. We're trying to manually close it because something was wrong. They are about to like come in the elevator light. The footsteps are about to come in the elevator light and finally it closes. We go back up to 1 and she is like pooping her pants. I am like shaken to the core and we look at the security guard and I'm like, there is something wrong with your elevator. It took us to the basement. He said, we don't have a basement here, ma'am. We get back in the ambulance. We just had to sit there. We couldn't even clean the gurney for a minute. Like we had to sit there and she said, what the fuck? This poor woman, she doesn't cuss. She's a good Christian woman. And we just never talked about it. Even talking about it is giving me like goosebumps because
This story I'm about to tell y'all has literally scared me for my entire life. When my cousin was 3 years old, she used to have these imaginary friends, which is cute and sweet, right? Right, except for she said they would come up out of the floor and that they were not alive. So the story kind of begins before my aunt had my cousin. My aunt was living in my granny's basement with her husband. One day they're just sitting there watching TV and they hear this sound that almost sounds like a cat getting sick. There was a cat that usually sat in their window meowing, so they kind of just dismissed the sound until it happened again. My aunt was like, "That's not a cat," and the sound started getting closer to them and they finally realized that it was like a little girl laughing. Never saw her, but they could hear a little girl giggling and she ran past them, or it sounded like she ran past them and into the bedroom, which obviously scared my aunt. She said that it made all the hair on her arm stand up. This isn't the only story with this little ghost girl. Like, honestly, there's so many stories from different people in my family that have encountered her. There's a really old story of my great-great aunt seeing a little dark-headed girl in her bedroom whenever that room was her room. Fast forward a few years and my aunt and her husband have moved into their own home, but it's on the same land. If you don't know, we do live in the Appalachian Mountains. My aunt said that my cousin was always playing with what she assumed was just her imaginary friends until one day my cousin came running to her. My aunt asked her what was wrong and she told her it was the little girls in her bedroom. My aunt asked her, where are they? And my cousin told her they come up out of the floor and they're not alive. My cousin was really smart for a 3-year-old. She was already talking a lot, so my aunt just asked her some simple questions that were like simple enough for a 3-year-old to understand. She asked her if she knew how this little girl had passed away. She said the little girl told her that she had plunged back into the river and the ice had frozen over her head and that her daddy couldn't find her. Kentucky River is on the mountain, like really close to our family property. And those were the exact words from a 3-year-old. She wouldn't talk about the other little girl except to say that when she came up out of the floor, her skin fell off. What? My aunt told her not to talk to that girl. She says she'd never forget that day. I remember another time when my mom, dad, and aunt and uncle were all sitting together and they all heard a little girl saying, "Daddy." I don't know if this is connected, but I used to have this reoccurring dream about the same cousin. She would be in her backyard, like mourning over this grave, which as far as we know, there's no grave there. My aunt has built her new house there now, like over where I used to see my cousin mourning over this grave in my dream. Under my aunt's house are like fingers growing up out of the ground. The mushrooms that look like fingers, I'll try to insert a photo here, but I don't know if any of that's connected. It's gotta be, right? Can't wait to hear what y'all think about this in the comments. It has always scared me. If you have a scary story, send it to my email, which is linked in my bio, and as always, I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video. Love y'all.